Welcome to True Echo, where one voice can change the world. In today's story, the powerful silence of a woman humiliated in public becomes the thunder that topples a billion-dollar empire. It's a tale of racial injustice, quiet power, and the brutal price of underestimating the wrong person. What happens when a black CEO is escorted off a plane like a criminal, and hours later, cancels a $600 million deal that brings an entire airline to its knees? Let's begin. The pre-dawn hours at LaGuardia Airport were usually uneventful, people shuffling through security half asleep, suitcases rolling like echoes across the polished floors. But today was different. Jessica Carter, CEO of Carter Capital Group, walked in dressed in tailored black wool, her poise unmistakable. She didn't demand attention. It followed her. She approached the first-class check-in counter with her usual calm. Her ticket, Seat 1A Zurich bound. Her purpose, a $600 million meeting with European partners that could shift entire markets. What Jessica didn't know, what none of us ever see coming, was that this wouldn't be a day about business. It would be a reckoning. Thomas Reed, a white employee in his 40s, looked her over with quick dismissal. Without checking her ticket, he gestured left. "Economy is that way," he said, loud enough for the line behind her to hear. Jessica paused. "Sir, I have a first-class ticket." His voice dropped in warmth, rising in volume. "I told you, economy is to the left. Please don't hold up the line." The air stiffened. Around them, passengers glanced up, sensing something about to rupture. But Jessica stayed composed. "Would you please check the system?" Reed didn't. Instead, he summoned security. Within minutes, Jessica found herself flanked by two officers, her wrist gently but firmly seized. She didn't resist. She simply handed over her platinum membership card. "Valid. Verified. Ignored." The whispers began. Did she sneak in? Some people really think they can fake it. As Reed warmly welcomed the next white passenger, no ID check, no hesitation, Jessica stood on the other side of the terminal glass, stunned. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. And what no one in that terminal realized was that they'd just humiliated the most powerful investor their airline had ever known. Jessica Carter was about to burn the sky. Jessica sat in the sterile security room, her breath steady but shallow. The air reeked of recycled plastic and institutional indifference. Across from her, a guard lazily clicked through a computer, pretending to verify something he'd already decided wasn't worth checking. Her documents lay in front of him, clear, legitimate, undeniable. Still, he muttered, "We've received a report that you tried to enter a restricted area. You'll have to wait for management." Jessica didn't respond. She didn't need to. She'd dealt with men like this her entire life, armed with clipboards and empty authority, threatened by competence, emboldened by uniforms. But today wasn't like the past. Today, every second of insult, every casual dismissal, was becoming fuel. When they finally let her go, she walked straight to TSA. A female agent named Sandra Miller took one look at her and narrowed her eyes. Bag on the table. Now. The inspection was no formality. Sandra rifled through Jessica's briefcase like she was panning for gold. Documents tossed carelessly, personal items handled like evidence in a crime scene. She held up a file folder stamped confidential, Carter Capital Group, and smirked. "Oh, so you're a big shot now?" Sandra said with mock amusement, flipping the pages for all to see. "Carrying around top-secret stuff like you're the CIA?" Jessica clenched her jaw. "Those documents are legally protected intellectual property. You have no right." "I have the right to ensure safety," Sandra interrupted, her voice dripping with authority she didn't deserve. "Unless you've got something to hide?" The insult was sharp and public. Other TSA agents chuckled. One passenger pulled out his phone and recorded the scene. Jessica stood stiff, surrounded by uniforms and whispers, her sense of dignity shrinking by the second. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was calculation. After what felt like a lifetime, Sandra pushed the bag toward her. "You're clean. But we'll be watching." Jessica zipped up her briefcase with trembling fingers. Her watch, a limited edition Cartier, was now scratched from being mishandled. But it wasn't about the watch. It wasn't about the ticket. It wasn't even about the flight anymore. It was about power. When Jessica reached her gate, the board flashed cruelly, "Seat 32B, Economy." Right next to the bathroom. She approached the desk calmly. "There's been a mistake. My original ticket was Seat 1A, First Class." Thomas Reed turned from the counter. His smug smile was unmistakable. "No mistake," he said, feigning regret. "You've been downgraded. Airline policy." We had to make room for more important passengers. Jessica stared at him. More important? Thomas leaned in, voice low. People who belong. Her skin crawled. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She pulled herself up, spine straight as steel. I'd like to speak to your supervisor. Thomas raised his hands. Already did. Decisions final. Around them, a small crowd had gathered, eavesdropping in the way people do when they hope for drama but refuse to intervene. Jessica stepped back, breathing evenly. She wasn't going to fight for a seat anymore. She was going to take the entire plane. She walked to the public seating area, lowered herself into a chair and pulled out her phone. One message. One name. Mark Townsend. Carter Capital Group's executive director. She pressed dial. Jessica Carter stood with her phone pressed to her ear, her other hand tightly gripping the damaged handle of her luxury briefcase. Her voice, though low, rang with chilling clarity. Mark. Activate the retaliation plan. Effective immediately. There was silence on the other end, only for a breath. Then came the calm, deliberate reply. Understood. I'll notify the legal and financial task forces. The full $600 million investment withdrawal begins now. Jessica didn't thank him. She didn't need to. They both knew what this meant. As the call ended, she looked around at the same indifferent terminal that had witnessed her humiliation just moments earlier. No one knew yet. But they would. Every executive. Every investor. Every policymaker tied to Orion Air. They'd all feel what it meant to insult Jessica Carter. She rose from the chair and made her way toward the boarding area, still composed, but this time walking with a different kind of weight. Not anger, certainty. Just then another obstacle emerged. A tall security officer with a chiseled jaw and a clipped tone stopped her mid-stride. His name tag read Richard Evans. His voice was dry. Miss Carter, we've received an alert. Your luxury watch may be counterfeit. You'll need to surrender it for verification. Jessica blinked once, processing the absurdity. That watch is genuine. I have the certification and the receipt on my phone. Evans folded his arms. Then you won't mind showing them. Jessica pulled out her phone and calmly presented the digital proof, photos, certificates, a scanned receipt from the boutique in Geneva. Evans barely glanced at them. Still need to check it in our system. Hand it over. She narrowed her eyes. No. I've shown you everything required. You have no legal basis to seize my property. He stepped forward, lowering his voice but not his volume. Then we'll mark you as a disruptive passenger. That means immediate removal and a ban from boarding today. Around them, people watched, phones hovering discreetly. But no one stepped in. Jessica scanned their blank expressions, an entire crowd more interested in spectacle than justice. This is racial harassment, she said, no longer hiding the edge in her tone. And I will not comply with illegal demands. Evans shrugged. Suit yourself. You've just been flagged in our system. Jessica clenched her jaw, heart racing. But her posture stayed perfect. With each attack, they thought they were breaking her down. What they didn't know, they were building her case. Each insult was another nail in their corporate coffin. After Evans walked off, she returned to the waiting area, until a new blow hit harder than she expected. Her briefcase, gone. Vanished. She bolted toward security, demanding an explanation. A board staffer replied, it was confiscated. Size violation. Go to lost and found. Confiscated? She echoed. That bag's flown around the world. First class. Business class. Never an issue. But arguing was futile. She stormed to the baggage handling area, where a sluggish clerk named Amanda finally brought the bag back after 45 agonizing minutes. It was ruined. Scratches across the leather. Zipper off track. Worse, when she opened it, the contents were soaked. Her top-secret Carter Capital documents, blurred. Ink bleeding into watermarks, as if someone had dumped water inside and resealed it. And her watch. Shattered. The face cracked like a spider web, ticking hands frozen. Jessica's mouth went dry. Who did this? Amanda shrugged. Can't say. Probably during inspection. Jessica demanded a supervisor. Amanda shrugged again and walked off without a word. She stood alone, violated and dismissed, anger seething just beneath the surface. This wasn't just racial profiling or negligence. This was war. And they had no idea the force they just provoked. Jessica stood motionless in the middle of the terminal, her briefcase hanging like a battle flag, broken and drenched, her shattered watch still ticking faintly inside. Everything that had happened until now, being downgraded, publicly searched, accused of theft, humiliated, had been a slow burn. But this This was the final match dropped into the gasoline. She began walking not back toward the gate, but toward the future courtroom of public opinion. And just then the last insult landed. "Miss Carter," said a cold voice behind her. She turned to find Officer Evans again, now with 2 other guards. "We need to perform an additional body check." Jessica blinked slowly, holding back a scream of disbelief. "I've already been through every check, every scan, and every humiliation you could offer. Give me one valid reason." Evans offered a crooked grin. "You've been flagged as high risk in our system. Random protocol." Her lips tightened. "I want a female officer present." "No female agents available," Evans said, deliberately loud enough for people nearby to look up. "We can do it here, or you can refuse, and we'll escalate." Jessica felt the sting of tears, but she blinked them away. She was not going to cry. Not now. Not in front of them. "I'll comply," she said, "but if you violate procedure, I will have this entire airport sued down to its paint." Evans raised a brow. Understood. What followed was not a search. Was a show. His movements slow, deliberate, pressing across her torso, lower than necessary under the cold, leering stares of strangers. Jessica flinched and snapped back. "This is not a security check. This is harassment." Evans straightened with a smirk. "Then feel free to file a complaint. But you're not boarding this flight if you don't finish." That was it. Jessica looked around once more. Not one person stood up. Not one voice challenged the injustice. Their silence screamed as loudly as Evans's cruelty. But then, finally, a shift. From behind her, a man in a sharply tailored suit pushed through the crowd. "That's enough," he barked. Everyone turned. Trent Maxwell, senior manager for Orion Air. He walked up, flanked by Thomas Reed, both wearing smug corporate calm. "Miss Carter, we understand there's been some tension. But unfortunately, your name has been removed from the passenger list. We cannot allow you to board this flight." Jessica steadied herself. "On what grounds?" Maxwell's voice dropped. "You've been deemed disruptive. It's a matter of safety." "You're lying," Jessica said flatly. Thomas Reed smiled. "Do what you want, sweetheart. You're not getting on that plane." Jessica clenched her fists. "Then get your CO. Now." Maxwell shrugged. "I'm the highest-ranking representative available. Security, please escort Miss Carter out of the terminal." The same guards returned, grabbing her arms, harder this time. She didn't resist. But as they dragged her away, she met Reed's eyes. "You'll regret this." He smirked. "I doubt that." Jessica didn't scream. She didn't shout. But as she was seated in a glass-walled isolation room near the back of the terminal, her next call was already ringing. "Mark," she said when the line picked up, "tell the legal team I want names. Everyone who touched this. We file suits tomorrow. Civil rights. Personal defamation. Harassment. And the press." Mark asked. Jessica's voice was calm. "Send them everything." While the hum of the terminal went on as usual, boarding calls, rolling luggage, casual chatter, Jessica Carter sat motionless in the glass isolation room, her damaged briefcase by her side, her posture straight, eyes fixed on the horizon beyond the runways. Her silence was not surrender. It was the silence of someone loading the last bullet. 15 minutes later, in a sleek high-rise in Manhattan, Carter Capital Group was already on fire. Mark Townsend stood at the head of the executive boardroom, sleeves rolled, eyes sharp. Effective immediately, he announced to a room full of analysts, legal heads, PR directors, and crisis managers, "We're freezing all liquidity ties with Orion Air." A younger exec blinked. "All 600 million? Mark nodded. "Every cent. Every instrument. Pull from their hedge funds. Cancel our underwriting on the Zurich expansion. Contact the Swiss banking delegates. Let them know the Zurich meeting is off. Permanently." "What about media?" asked the PR director. Mark already had an answer. "We release footage. Jessica's TSA ordeal. The Reed confrontation. The bag damage. The public strip search. The leaked passenger reports labeling her a threat. We frame the narrative, racial profiling of the highest magnitude, corporate negligence, public harassment." Phones buzzed in unison. The press release had gone out. In the next hour, it would hit every financial newswire in the Western Hemisphere. Breaking. Carter Capital Group withdraws $600 million from Orion Air following CEO's public humiliation at LaGuardia. The backlash was instant. By the time Jessica exited the glass security cell and calmly walked toward the terminal exit, the first tweet was already viral. Black CEO publicly humiliated by Orion Air staff. Removed from flight. Accused of theft. She owns half their market cap. Guess what? She just pulled it all. Reporters had already begun calling. Advocacy groups were drafting open letters. Shareholders were panicking. At Orion Air's corporate headquarters, the cracks split wide open. Leonard Westbrook, the longtime senior director, was in the middle of reviewing expansion plans when his assistant ran in pale-faced. "Sir, we have a crisis." He handed Westbrook a printed alert. Westbrook's brow furrowed as he read. U.S. government reviewing $2 billion defense contract with Orion Air following racial discrimination allegations. "What the hell is this?" Westbrook asked, already dialing legal. But it was too late. Mark Townsend had not just pulled the investment. He'd triggered a chain reaction. Government contracts were under review. Institutional investors were jumping ship. Media outlets were hounding every known executive of Orion Air. In a different boardroom, in a different part of the city, Jessica Carter sat quietly, no longer furious, just focused. She didn't need revenge. She needed accountability. "The message is simple," she told Mark. "Let them know that what happened at Gate 12 wasn't just about me. It was about every person who's ever been told they don't belong, even when they do." Mark nodded. "Understood. Do we go after the individuals by name?" Jessica looked down at her phone, where Thomas Reed's smirking face appeared in a still shot from the gate footage. "Yes," she said. At 8:32 a.m. the following morning, Leonard Westbrook stood in front of a sea of flashing cameras, his eyes sunken and voice trembling beneath his practiced tone. It was the emergency press conference Orion Air's board had forced into motion overnight. "Orion Air extends its deepest apologies to Miss Jessica Carter," he said, reading from a sheet that might as well have been soaked in gasoline. "The events that occurred at LaGuardia Airport were unacceptable and do not reflect our company's values." But the room didn't believe him. Reporters' hands shot up. Shouts overlapped. "Is it true the U.S. Department of Transportation has canceled your $2 billion federal contract? Will Thomas Reed and Trent Maxwell face criminal charges? What steps are being taken to prevent racial profiling from being embedded in your service culture?" Westbrook froze. Before he could answer, a new alert pinged across the media center. "Breaking. U.S. government officially terminates multi-billion-dollar agreement with Orion Air over systemic discrimination." Westbrook's face dropped in real time, captured on every major network, live-streamed, clipped, reposted. Behind the cameras, phones vibrated in unison. Investors, partners, politicians. The airline stock plummeted 48% in a single trading session. By noon, protests formed outside Orion's headquarters. Inside, the boardroom became a battlefield. Trent Maxwell, once smug and untouchable, now stood pale and cornered. Legal had presented the evidence. His order to downgrade Jessica's ticket, the removal from the passenger list, the disruptive passenger label, all documented. His voice cracked. "I didn't know who she was." Westbrook snapped. "You knew she was a black woman and that was enough." Thomas Reed didn't even try to speak. He had already been fired. Legal proceedings were underway. Michael Thompson, the security officer who instigated the false theft claim, had also been terminated and was now under federal investigation. Meanwhile, the footage of Jessica being dragged away from the boarding gate by security had reached 50 million views. A still image, her holding her crumpled briefcase while security clutched her arms, had become the new face of corporate racism. Commentators and civil rights leaders began calling her the Wall Street Rosa Parks. But Jessica didn't care for titles. She cared for consequences. That afternoon she made her only public appearance, not in front of cameras, but before a group of black female entrepreneurs at a private leadership summit in Brooklyn. She took no notes, wore no makeup, and didn't smile for effect. She just spoke. "There are two kinds of power," she said. "The kind people give you, and the kind you build yourself so no one can ever take it away." Silence followed. Then thunderous applause. Jessica walked out of that room knowing the work was only beginning. But something had shifted. Not just for her, but for the whole industry. Orion Air wasn't just losing money. They were losing trust, reputation, permanence, and all because they thought they could humiliate a black woman quietly. The fall of Orion Air didn't come with a crash, it came with silence. A slow, suffocating collapse beneath the weight of a truth they had tried to ignore for far too long. Over the following weeks, government audits uncovered damning patterns of racial profiling buried deep within the company's internal reports. Former employees came forward with sworn testimonies. Black and brown passengers consistently flagged for random searches. downgraded without reason, escorted out with fake citations of policy violations. News networks ate it up. But the real reckoning came from inside. Wall Street investors pulled out in waves. European banking partners blacklisted Orion. Airlines once looking to collaborate on joint routes distanced themselves publicly. A prominent transportation watchdog published a scathing report titled, "The Price of Silence: How Orion Air Undervalued a Black Woman and Lost Everything." Jessica Carter didn't say much after the storm hit, because she didn't need to. Her actions had spoken louder than 1,000 interviews. Inside Carter Capital Group's 63rd floor conference room, Jessica watched the press coverage in silence. The room buzzed around her, calls from senators, global CEOs requesting meetings, media outlets begging for exclusive interviews. She declined them all. When her assistant placed a tablet in front of her showing a video clip, Leonard Westbrook bowing his head in public apology, Jessica didn't blink. She simply said, "Schedule a meeting with our education fund." "Education fund?" her assistant asked. Jessica turned. "I want a scholarship for young Black women in aviation and corporate leadership. Full ride. Every year. We'll name it after my mother." Her voice softened for a moment, her composure breaking just slightly. She worked as a cleaner at the very airport where this happened. Her feet on that floor gave me the strength to stand on mine. And then came the twist, quiet but seismic. Orion's board, desperate to save what remained, reached out to Carter Capital Group with an offer. A full public apology. Resignations from key executives. And unthinkably, a buyout offer. They would sell controlling shares of Orion Air to Jessica Carter. The woman they escorted off their plane now had the power to own it. Jessica didn't answer immediately. She took 3 days. Spoke to no one. Walked the tarmac of LaGuardia alone, the cold wind biting her skin the same way those stairs did weeks before. Then she walked into Carter Capital's boardroom and said just one thing. "We'll buy it. But we don't keep the name." Today the airline once known as Orion Air no longer exists. It operates under a new banner. Equijet. Its mission, ethical air travel. Inclusive, transparent, accountable. Its leadership? Diverse. Its training? Groundbreaking. Jessica Carter never became the face of revenge. She became the face of reform. The world didn't just watch her rise. It learned from her roar. Jessica Carter's story isn't just about power. It's about dignity. It's about drawing the line where others step over it, and daring to make that line permanent. As she said herself, power isn't given. It's built. Quietly. Brick by brick. Until the world can't ignore it. If this story moved you, share it. If it made you think, comment. And if it reminded you that truth still matters in this world, subscribe to True Echo, where the unheard become unforgettable.